New tonight, the January 6th Select Committee requesting a second sitting member of Congress to come speak to investigators. This time, Republican Congressman Jim Jordan, one of former President Trump's staunchest allies, someone who has admitted to talking to Trump multiple times on January 6th. And just last week, the committee revealed that text messages it obtained from former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows include a text from Jordan detailing a way to overturn the election just a day before the insurrection. Congressman Scott Perry, the other Republican lawmaker asked to appear before the committee, he rejected that request just yesterday. Jessica Schneider is out front for us now. Jessica, what more are you learning about this request for Jim Jordan?
Yeah, Kate, the committee is actually telling Congressman Jordan in this letter they know he spoke with Trump at least once, if not multiple times, they say, on January 6th. So now they want him to sit for a voluntary interview as soon as January 3rd. But from what we've seen here, it is highly unlikely that Congressman Jordan will cooperate. He has already in the past warned that the committee targeting GOP lawmakers in any capacity, he said it would be met with political retribution if Republicans retake the House after the midterms. And then, of course, you referenced it. We saw Congressman Scott Perry. He lashed out at the committee's legitimacy already this week, and he rebuffed their request to interview him. So far tonight, no response from Jordan. But the committee is really trying to throw his words back at him by writing him in this letter that Jordan said back in August that he had, quote, nothing to hide. But there is at least that one text message of note. Jordan forwarded a text to former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows on January 5th outlining this plan for VP Mike Pence. And here's exactly what it said, Kate. On January 6, 2021, Vice President Mike Pence, as president of the Senate, should call out all electoral votes that he believes are unconstitutional as no electoral votes at all. Of course, that was all part of the plot to get Pence to block certification, which he ultimately refused to do, Kate. But Jordan's spokesperson has told us about that text. They say it was actually written by a former Defense Department Inspector General and that Jordan was just forwarding the text on to Meadows. But of course, it is clear the committee wants to talk about that text and they want to find out through Jordan what Trump was up to inside the White House on January 6th. It's interesting, Kate, because the committee in this letter, they say they know that Trump was watching TV coverage of the Capitol attack from his private dining room next to the Oval Office that day. And they say even after the crowd dispersed, that Trump was still trying to delay or impede the vote count. So there is a lot this committee wants to know. They're hoping they can do it through Congressman Jordan, Kate. Unlikely he'll sit down, and we'll see if any subpoenas follow. Kate?
Jessica, thanks for laying it out for us. I really appreciate it. For more on this, let me bring in right now John Dean, Watergate whistleblower and former Nixon White House counsel. It's good to see you, John. So Jim Jordan, who Kevin McCarthy had actually picked to put on this select committee to represent Republicans at the beginning, now he is becoming a central figure in this investigation. How important do you think his testimony could be to the committee's work?
Well, I don't think it's vital testimony. As the letter shows, they have a pretty good idea what happened. They'd like to hear it from him. I'm sure there's much more he could add to what they know. But we also know it's Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan is a Trump acolyte. He is not going to do anything to upset his master. It's just that simple. So they're going to have trouble. I think they're going to have to use the subpoena, and it's going to be tested.
One key question with Jordan, really ever since January 6th, has been what were his communications with Donald Trump on January 6th? Because the question has become all the more interesting as Jordan himself has tripped over answering it multiple times. Let me play this for you.
I've talked to the president so many, I can't remember all the days I've talked to him, but I've certainly talked to the president.
I spoke with him that day after. I don't know if I spoke with him in the morning or not. I just don't know.
Of course I talked to the president. I talked to him that day. I've been clear about that. I don't recall the number of times.
John, what do you do with that?
Well, that's not the normal Jordan answer. He's pretty crisp and pretty clear on most of his answers. His mind is probably trying to calculate, well, what kind of exposure do I have at this stage in answering that question? And I think he does have exposure. Because of the text he forwarded the day before, I'll tell you, if they ever start pursuing conspiracy charges, he walked right into a conspiracy to obstruct Congress, was it a seditious conspiracy? May well have been. So I think he knows he has exposure, and if he ever is in front of that committee, he'll probably have to take the fifth. That's probably another reason he doesn't want to go.
Yeah, you can assume that. Look, Republican Congressman Scott Perry, he rejected this voluntary request as well, outright, kind of slamming the committee. Obviously, Jordan is likely to follow suit in that. You've said they should compel him with a subpoena, but how big of a deal would this be? Because is there a risk at this point, as we've kind of seen this trend of just person after person, ally after ally, defying subpoenas, that it just doesn't have anything of the impact they want it to at this point?
Well, if the impact they want to get is the fact that the people who are associated with Trump won't cooperate, I think they're doing a good job of showing that, and they're stacking them up one after another. If it ever comes to a showdown, and Jordan would probably take this to court as others have, it's a different privilege this time it's in play. It's called the Speech and Debate Clause of the Constitution, provides members of Congress with a safe haven for anything they do as part of the legislative process. Now, I don't think planning or assisting or asking to call off an insurrection is any way connected with the legislative process. But, you know, we don't know the outer reach of this privilege. It's one that's really had very little court test, been maybe a dozen cases on it. So that's what he would rely on if push comes to shove. And I don't think people really want to test that privilege too much.
We've definitely seen a lot of people really testing the outer bounds of many privileges in recent months and years here in Washington. It's good to see you, John. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.